Hey guys, this is Phase 3. Phase 2 is one of the most coveted statues ever made. And we're going to talk more about that in a few days because you're actually going to see a video about Phase 4. But today we're going to check out Phase 3 from Wolverine Chronicles, or this custom Wolverine Vs Sentinel statue. That's all I got today. No other jokes in the intro. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Extreme channel. My name is Mr. X. We're all about extreme collectibles, and I have one of the most extreme collectibles in the world right here on my table. That's right, there's only 75 of these, and as I said in the intro, they're actually part of a statue line. This is number 3 in the line, and we're actually going to talk more about that when we talk about number 4, because believe it or not, I got number 3 and number 4 delivered right about the same time, where typically they're usually about a year apart. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about that because all we're going to do today is we're going to look at this crazy Wolverine vs Sentinel statue. So first of all, this is a custom. Means it's a private unlicensed commission. As I said, they only made 75 of them. Long sold out. I can't tell you where to get any. And I purchased him because I love X-Men statues and I love X-Men vs Sentinel statues. As you guys know, I have a number of X-Men vs Sentinel statues with giant Sentinel heads and hands. And I thought this would look awesome next to them. If you want to see what this looks like in my display, make sure you not only like this video, but you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification because very, very soon we're actually doing a brand new room tour. Also, if you can't wait till then, make sure to check out the Extreme Channel Facebook page or Instagram. I post a lot of exclusive photos on there before you actually see them on YouTube. Believe it or not, you can actually see photos of Phase 4 on that already. It's the same sculptor, same producer that made this entire line. It's kind of the evolution of Wolverine. We'll go over the other pieces in the Phase 4 review, because as I said, today we're just going to focus on this guy and focus on this giveaway that we are so close to, probably going to hit hopefully in the next week or so. Check it out. As a thank you to you guys, we're giving away these 2 exclusive Mortal Kombat statues from Pop Culture Shock Toys. We've already given away this Sub-Zero. It's being shipped to the winner of the 15,000 sub giveaway. Up for grabs at 17,500 subs is this exclusive Scorpion statue. First thing you need to do is make sure you've liked this video, you subscribe to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification. Second thing is we are going to pick random videos. This is one of those random videos, and insert this segment somewhere. You need to make sure you comment on that video. We are going to pick a random comment from one of said videos, and you will be the winner of this Scorpion statue. All right, so first topic we're going to cover in the Extreme Review, as always, is the concept of this piece. Now, making Wolverine statues is the rage. There are so many different Wolverine statues, both custom or licensed by like Sideshow Collectibles, XM Studios. And I think over the course of the last 5-6 years, I've owned 20 to 25 different Wolverine statues. I currently still have about 10 or so. But one of the other rages besides making Wolverine statues is making X-Men vs Sentinel statues. Everyone seems to like that. And what's funny is everyone that's making Sentinel statues, all the Sentinels are a little bit different. Some are more of a cartoon take, some are more of a comic take, some are more of a realistic take, but they're all different sizes as well. But let's check this one out. So first thing you have going on, the Sentinel Head is the base, which I absolutely love that. I think that's really cool, and this particular Sentinel Head is a little more square than some of the big roundish heads that I have, and I like that because it's different. To me, it's kind of reminiscent of the 90s X-Men cartoon. So this is the top of the Sentinel Head, and maybe the Sentinel Head's been cut off, or obviously we didn't want to do a whole Sentinel simply for the fact it would take up too much room, but Wolverine has kicked this Sentinel's ass. He's ripped out the eye, and this is a very dynamic statue. It's like taking the picture in the middle of the battle. He just swiped the eye out, the eye's flying away, and he is in a really weird pose. Now you may say, wow, that's kind of a crazy weird pose. Well, I challenge you to get on top of a Sentinel Head and rip its eye out and take a picture and see what it looks like. You should see the funny screenshots I have of me as a YouTuber while I try and edit and cut. So Wolverine's in his classic yellow costume, insigniating he is still with the X-Men. He is totally roided out as Wolverine is, and his anatomy is kind of all over the place. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with sculpt, but it's mostly due to the weird position that he's in. His claws are fully extended. In this particular portrait, he does have a masked or a cowled portrait. We have a few different portrait options we're going to look at. And honestly, I'm going to let you know right now I'm not a fan of any of them. But it really just shows Wolverine and his power. It shows him fighting one of the most common enemies of the X-Men and of mutants. So it's your classic Wolverine. And there are a few different versions of a yellow Wolverine vs Sentinel. One of the most popular ones is this licensed piece by Sideshow Collectibles that I actually still own and like very much. And we're going to talk a little bit about differences between that and this piece in a minute. So overall for concept, first of all, I don't think it's unique. It's Wolverine versus Sentinel. The way they did it, however, is very unique. He's on the Sentinel head. He's torn it in half. Very tall piece. We're going to do the dimensions later. And one thing I really like about this concept is the size of the Sentinel head. Compared to sideshows, I think this is accurately scaled. So I think the concept's a 4 out of 5. It's pretty cool. It's not as cool as some of the other ones in this phase line, but I still give it a lot of props. Now let's talk about design on this piece. And first, I'll kind of show you the switch outs I was just talking about. It comes with 3 portraits to display. So this first one is a cowled Wolverine, and his mouth is shut. I mean, granted, his lips are open a little bit, but you can definitely see his teeth are closed. Now you have this one right here, where his mouth is open. You see his fangs. And one of the things you're going to notice on all these, not only are his eyes not white or regular, they're kind of this black color, which is very, very different. But on his cowled portraits here, you actually see the skin around his eyes, which typically you don't see. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. Then the last one is an unmasked portrait where the cowl is hanging on the back. And as I said, I'm actually not a fan of any of those portraits. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, here's a picture of one of the portraits again. You can see the skin around his eyes. And I want to compare this to Batman. You know, when Batman has his cowl or his mask on, he usually has black around his eyes, which I don't know how he has time to paint that. And if you ever caught Batman Returns, remember that with Michael Keaton? At the very end of the movie, when he's revealing himself to Catwoman or Michelle Pfeiffer, spoiler alert, he has the black around his eyes. Then he rips his mask off and he doesn't have black around his eyes. I totally just destroyed your view of Batman, didn't I? And that really has nothing to do with this. But in my opinion, superheroes just look cooler if they have a mask on where you can't see any of the skin around the eyes. So I don't like that in the design of this. Let's take a look at the unboxing and assembly of this piece. It was one large box, which Mrs. X hauled in. And they all have this Wolverine Chronicles saying which phase it is. All of them are the same. And it was 2 layers. The first layer was Wolverine and part of the base. The second layer was some of the switch outs and the base.
Previously on X-Men.
So fairly simplistic. Spoiler alert, a lot easier than Phase 4, which you'll see in the next 3 to 5 days. Regarding the engineering of the piece, I think it's done really well. Everything fit together, there's no seam lines, so I am impressed with that. However, one big issue I have, kind of the elephant in the room almost literally, is the size. These pieces in this line are typically not 1/3 scale or 1/4 scale, meaning 3 times smaller than a real life version or 4 times smaller, but somewhere in between that. So almost 1 divided by 3.5. This is at least that big, if not a little bit bigger. It's almost pushing on 1/3 scale. Now, to put it in perspective, it's kind of difficult because all the different Wolverine statues are even 1/4 scale or 1/3 scale are in different positions. However, we can look at the portraits. Here's a picture of this portrait next to other pieces from this same custom group. They traditionally make them a little bit larger, like I said, between 1/3 and 1/4 scale. However, let's add Sideshow's premium format into the mix. This is where it's really telling. And I think Sideshow's is a little bit underscaled, obviously, but this is where you really see that size. So I think this is almost 1/3 scale, just a shy under. And I don't like that because I'm going to put him next to, I think, a Banshee statue. Actually, I'm going to put him next to this Banshee right here. And I think he might be a little bit bigger than Banshee, which Wolverine shouldn't be. So I think the design is really done. However, I really don't like around the eyes. I'm not a fan of any of the portrait expressions. We'll talk more about that in sculpt. They're done really well. I just don't like them. And I think this one is really overscaled because there's not a lot of 1/3 scale X-Men pieces out there. And because he's Wolverine, who is very short in the comics, he's going to look funny next to 1/4 pieces. So for those 2 big reasons, I think the design's a 3 out of 5 on this. It's still good, but it's not phenomenal. However, other than some choices with the expressions on the portraits we just talked about, I think the paint and sculpt is a lot better than that. So let's take a video of that to kind of give you a close-up view, and there's tons of detail in here, and I like a lot of what they did. All right, so let's get started, and I want to start at the Sentinel Head because I think it's phenomenal. I think it's, I'm hesitant to say perfect, but I want to say perfect. I love the battle damage, not only the cuts that may have been made by Wolverine or another X-Men, the eye popping out. I think the colors are fantastic. Like I said, very reminiscent of the X-Men 90s cartoon. You have the slashes, you have a lot of like scoring and black shadow shading to really help that. Then you see a lot of the circuitry too. And what's really cool about this is some of the stuff that's hidden on the back, which you may have seen when we went around. But look how detailed this stuff is. It has the model number. Again, more circuits and kind of gaskets and things like that. Really impressive, and I like how this is the actual base of the unit. They didn't make a separate museum-style base. And these colors just work really well together. There's that black speckling inside the purple with the beige and the coppers and the blacks. And then again, more damage all over. Maybe Cyclops blasted him right there. It looks fantastic. Really well done on this Sentinel Head. Wolverine has done very well as well, but the Sentinel Head to me kind of is what takes the cake. So with Wolverine, couple things on him. His boots kind of have the shiny gloss on them. Tons of detail in the stitching. I like the folds they added in the sculpt. The paint is extremely clean. You're going to see that almost everywhere. I like how the fins on his boot don't stick up and too far out. Those are typically what break in shipping as well. And you saw it was packed very well. So it kind of has this matte finish on the top, and there's really kind of this cracked texture pattern. With all the scoring and blackness, you really get the feeling that, you know, he's been in a battle for a while, or he hasn't washed his clothes in a while. But take a look at his suit here. It's almost too much texture for me. And then one thing I don't like is typically in between the anatomy of the muscles, you see that darker color. It's too much here. It almost looks like it's way too dirty. I'm not a fan of that. And then speaking of the anatomy, again, it's kind of a weird pose. I'll talk more about the anatomy later, but he's fully bulged out and the suit is almost stretching like it can't contain him. I think what would have helped is if they added some battle damage to this, maybe some tears and rips, because if the suit's so dirty, maybe, you know, it doesn't follow the storyline well, like it's made out of something extremely durable. But over-muscularized on the back, and again, it's because he's in a weird position. I'll have to try and look at my back, see how it matches Wolverine. Also not a fan of how dark they went on the paint of his arms. The anatomy of it is fantastic. I like the vein work, the hair looks good, but I think the skin tones are just too dark. The gloves look fantastic. Again, I like that they added folds. There's metal claws, which is definitely the way to go with Wolverine. A little bit of texturized pattern on the other side of the gloves. Classic 3 stripes. Look how clean the paint is down here. I like that it's not like a new suit, so the belt isn't shiny or anything like that, so it does tell the same story, which I do appreciate. Let's look at his portrait. So it's done very well, the paint detail, the sculpt. I just don't like the expressions. And again, you can see the folds and how dirty it is up here, and even on the sides of his fins here. I like that linear pattern. And then almost his lips are too pink with how dark the rest of his portrait is. And then I'll switch out here for his unmasked portrait. I don't like his eyebrows, too thick eyebrows. I wish one of the eyes would have been normalized or whited out eyes. I think that would have helped. So again, it's just my personal preference on kind of the art direction of some of these that is just not for me. It's done well though, even his hair right here, and then you can see the cowl flowing in the back, similar to the way Sideshow's did. And then here's the last portrait with the open mouth. The detail in the paint on this is really good. I mean, look at that, it looks like a real tongue. And again, I like kind of that wear on the mask, it tells the same story. This is probably the portrait I'm gonna go with, and it's what I had displayed during most of this review. So some opportunities on Wolverine, and a lot of it is more my preference or things I'm just not as knowledgeable about, but it's still really good and really impressive, especially when you take a step back. This piece is just pretty cool. But for sure, probably this portrait will go back in the box. So while I disagree with some of the paint colors like we talked about, like I said, I think his skin is too dark. I don't like all the dirty parts of Wolverine. I think it's almost too much, despite the fact he has been in a huge battle. I think the Sentinel is next level. I think the paint's really clean. So I think the paint's a 4 out of 5, especially for a factory paint job. It's difficult when you judge paint because some of it is just your preference on really the art direction of the paint, and some of it is how well do they execute it. As far as execution, that's top notch on this. As far as some of the choices, like I said, I would have went in a different direction. Sculpt. Again, Sentinel is phenomenal. I wouldn't change anything on that. Wolverine, his muscles, again, I'm not an expert at human anatomy, and I'm not going to make this pose for you guys. Maybe I'll do it for Mrs. X later in the bedroom to see what muscles actually go where. Which it wouldn't really be helpful if I did that because you can't see some of my muscles underneath, some of the other stuff on top. Speaking of which, trying to get rid of my COVID-20 that I gained. I started a diet today. Someone offered me free barbecue at lunch. That son of a bitch. I held strong. You should be proud. I've only had 200 calories and it's like dinner time. Thanks for that extra special glimpse into your life, Mr. X. Get back to the fucking statue. Honestly, that's the only thing on the sculpt that bothers me a little bit. Like I said, I think the sculpt of the portraits is done extremely well. I just don't dig the expressions. Again, it's more of an execution versus art direction thing, but I give the sculpt a 4 out of 5 as well. I don't think it's perfect, and I like the sculpt better on some of the other pieces, but it's still really well done. So now let's jump to value on this piece. I talk a little bit more about value of all the Wolverine Chronicles. That's what the phases are called, Wolverine Chronicles, in the next video. This was 1,400 euros, which is pricey. You're almost at about 1,700 to 1,900 US dollars, plus shipping was about $300. And shipping took, I want to say, like 4 or 5 months. It took a long time waiting for a container to be filled. So you're around $2,000 all in for this piece. Now, Sideshow's piece, you could buy almost 4 of them for that price. However, I think they made 3,000 or 4,000 of Sideshows. They made 75 of these. The fact that he's overscaled actually hurts the value quite a bit. Now, if he's a standalone piece, it doesn't. So $2,000 in for this piece, he's done really well, but I think it's a 3 out of 5 on the value. I don't think he's going to carry some of the value that phases 1, 2, and 4 are going to carry. But I definitely think you can get your money back if you're looking for the right buyer. Now, does this have the X factor? Is it a 5 out of 5 statue? Is it the best Wolverine statue out there? It's not. I can say that right off the bat. Some of my favorite Wolverine statues are the Soldier one I've reviewed. You can actually check that out right here. And that one is probably my favorite, but second to that is actually this Samurai piece. So rephrase that, is this the best traditional Wolverine statue? I don't know. I'm not going to say it is. I'm not going to say it isn't. I'm not going to say this is a 5 out of 5 statue. It's not. Phases 1 and 2 I think were. But I think this is a 4 out of 5 overall. It's really impressive. I love the dynamic motion. I love the Sentinel head. Wolverine still looks badass. Super happy to have him in my collection because he actually is going to fit perfectly. He's going to be one I'm going to keep for a long, long time. So if you like this, again, make sure not only to like this video, but hit that Mr. X logo to subscribe because Phase 4 is coming very soon. Although I think I'll drop another video before that. And if you're watching this from the future, did robots take over? Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you very soon. Take care.